Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of The Climb. This week, it's free. It's Free Talk Friday. It's liberating. And like anything that's like a free talk, a conversation, it's interactive. So we want your comments. This is live. Might as well join in. Throw something in, chime in, say whatever you want, and we'll get to it. There's no waiting at the end for the last 10 minutes. This is a conversation between you, myself, and of course, my co-host, Dave. But before we get into everything, I want to tell you a little bit about what we're doing. A little bit of production error there. I love it. Shows you just how on the fly we are. Digital Mastermind is a group of digital agencies that come together to collaborate, help each other solve each other's issues, lean on each other, make sure that they don't run into the pitfalls that are down the road. We do that through our group, which is the host of this show, the Digital Mastermind Group. You can visit us online, digitalmastermind.com. Or if you're interested in just joining, or you have any questions, comments, concerns, shoot me an email, john@digitalmastermind.com. So, since today is Free Talk, we're going to get into some things of conversation. Like I said, feel free to chime in with whatever you want. But there are a couple of emails from last week's episode that I want to address. Some very important ones. First email. Oh, Dave, you want to say something?
Yeah, before we get into it, since this is Free Talk Friday, I did want to share a little something about what Digital Masterminds has meant to me over the course and the value that it has brought me and my company.
Do tell.
I joined Digital Masterminds probably 8 years ago, and the knowledge that I've gained from the members has been invaluable. The tips, tricks, tools, everything about running an agency and growing it through the different phases, from a sub 500,000 revenue agency to the $1 million mark, through the $1 million mark, into the greater. I have learned so much, and there's always been somebody there to guide or be a mentor. And if you don't have a peer group for running your agency, highly recommend getting one. And Digital Masterminds could be that group for you. We have bi-weekly calls, yearly meetings, this podcast, this show, and we're always in touch. So highly recommend, if you're running an agency and you need to grow it, this is the group for you. So that was my Free Talk open intro right there.
I'm going to go ahead and steal that. I actually took notes during that one. That was a great intro, Dave. I appreciate that input.
All right.
Now I want to jump into some of the emails, some of these fantastic emails.
So we actually have show feedback.
We do. We have show feedback. Wow. And not all of it's positive. In fact, none of it is positive.
That's fine.
Regardless, I'll take it how we can get it, right? So first one is, John, you're pale, period. That's from Mike, everybody. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate the feedback. The second one is from Anonymous, and it's a little bit long, so bear with me. But this is regarding earlier this week's episode regarding account management and project management. So it says, first, I want to say thank you. Big fan of your podcast. However, I feel your last episode missed the mark. Let me elaborate. The summary of the podcast says you're going to discuss the traits of account management and project management and how their roles can be mixed up. But what was discussed more than anything was what makes a shitty account manager. And not much at all was even talked about in regard to project management. It really seemed like someone had a vendetta against account managers. It came off very negative. I think this was an excellent topic, but warranted more discussion in regard to AM and PM roles. Here are a few talking points I would like to hear more about. AM and PM roles with new sales/clients and how they work with salespeople, the onboarding processes and how they can best assist bringing on those new clients. During project, what work will an account manager and project manager cross over on and how they can best work together. Last, changing of the guard. When should you change the account manager or project manager in the middle of a project if things aren't going well? I hope you find this feedback constructive. Yours truly, Anonymous. Well, I appreciate that feedback. And I think it's fantastic. As far as the onboarding process, I'm not going to belabor this show with a lot of those subjects, but we're going to take that and maybe we'll do an account management versus project management too. And I would love to have you on the show to explain to our audience a lot of these points and what your thoughts are. So, Anonymous, I just want to say thank you so much.
Yeah, just to address one of those points, I guess, by identifying what doesn't work and what makes it's kind of like addition by subtraction. Like, here's the things to avoid, and, maybe you'll end up with the good. So, I mean, yeah, I can see it might not be the greatest story because you're focusing it from a negative perspective, but those are still all things that you got to avoid as an account manager.
Yeah, I know. I think this is great feedback. We could have definitely went into the onboarding processes more, talk about best assistant, because those are a lot of the things that going into that one point of it can be thankless that people aren't thanking the account manager for doing. There's a lot of those things that are hidden, and people are blind to that they're never going to get credit for. So yeah, I think it's a great email. And I appreciate it.
I wish if Anonymous was watching live that they would have challenged us right there on the show. I would have loved to have that interaction.
That would be great. Yeah. I love that. All right. So yeah, good. Shoot an email, leave a comment. And if you want to remain anonymous, I'm totally cool with that. I love feedback anyway, that we can get it. So Dave, why don't we go ahead and talk about something that we're dealing with today in our agency. And that is we're trying to do two things in our sales process, which is quote faster and quote more accurate, or doing both of those without losing on either side, right? So like table accounting. And some of the issues that we're running into there is the amount of time that it takes our team to quote, right? Because if we want to be accurate, then we're going to have more of our top level talent looking at the information before we get it out. And then we're now segmenting, things to make that easier, right? So I guess, where do you think we are in this process? And if you had to explain to our audience, what do you think our solution is?
Well, to start, let's kind of lay down the framework of where we're at right now. And I think right now we do a really good job of providing very thorough, well thought out, well planned, with vision proposals for work, which is why I think we have a pretty good close rate. And, we
have a solid sales process insofar as we get complimented all the time that, all right, when somebody brings us, we're very thorough. They feel like they're being heard and understand. But the issue is it takes a lot of time. So it's really expensive for us to quote.
And what we're really talking about, because when we're talking about like a 5-6 figure project, we've got that. We're not changing the process. We're not talking about those. We're still going to be thorough. We're still going to do the interview with the client and get all the information we know, because those require that level of, deep, detail. Mm-hmm. What we're really talking about is how do you service quickly and efficiently the smaller end projects like a $5,000 brochure site. That is the one that you can't maintain profitability by bringing in your top guns constantly, because those are the most numerous amount of leads that you get, right? Because they're the smaller scale projects are the most numerous, and I don't want to be inefficient with my top people's time. So the goal here is, how do we empower other people to do those deep dives quickly on the smaller projects so that we can still make the smaller projects a part of our business? Because I know a lot of people, and maybe somebody's going to comment in and say, stop working on those small projects.
Yep. And let's be fair. Like, there's a ton of, we do work with other agencies, right? And there's one in New York. They can't do anything less than $60,000. That's why they're speaking to us. So we have already an advantage that we can deliver a website profitable at 5,000 or less. And then to our audience, the way that we do this is, let's say we've talked about this in the past. If you say all I have is $5,000, we're going to tell you what you can get for $5,000. Right. So that's where we're moving toward by creating these restrictions here. So please continue.
Oh, so we like to still go after these 5K projects because at Oyova we are a learning organization, right? So we're going to have all levels of people working on this, and if we're going to develop new talent, we need to be able to bring on less risky projects that people can cut their teeth on and learn, get involved in the process, learn our process, because we don't have just senior level everything so that we're only taking on those 60K projects. Those are higher risk. We want to be able to have feeder projects that work into our system. So we're never going to get rid of that lower tier project. But in an effort to how do we make that more efficient, we started talking about what can we do to get that going as quickly as possible. And the thing we're working on right now, we don't know if it's the answer, is to come up with some kind of worksheet that sales and account management can use to gather most of it, 80% of the details. There still might be a 20%. And upon review, when the production team takes a look at this filled out worksheet and says, hey, I still got some questions, sure, let's escalate that into another call. But we want to be able to get a pretty decent quote range narrowed in after the first call. That's what our goal is. And from John, with your sales perspective, I mean, how do you feel that works into your process?
I think to me, it's if we can quote, like I said, faster and more accurate, I think it's great. I think at the end of the day, just if somebody doesn't have the budget to, so one a friend of ours, and he was on the show, Gabe, right? He said, if you're not willing to spend, more than $5,000 a month on your marketing, you have a hobby. You don't have a business. If you're not willing to spend $20,000, for your website, you have a hobby. You don't have a business. So I think it kind of goes into that. And I don't want to just turn those people away. I want to offer them a solution. And I think it's incredible that we can offer a solution for $5,000. That's not a ton of money, especially when you're talking about a website. And it's not supernatural. We have you can select a theme, and there's a lot of agencies that are doing this. You can style it to a certain capacity. Maybe you have your own built theme already that you fit people into. There's so much of that business out there because companies like Shopify, Wix, and Squarespace wouldn't exist otherwise. And as an agency, I want some of that money. So I think having the questionnaire for the process is something I used to use a long time in the past. Now we morphed into a process which is more in line with just, we're going to get some information. It's going to be very experiential where we're talking through things, looking at features, and then we move down the line where somebody's convinced that we can deliver the work. We understand their budget. Everybody's high-fiving and backslapping, as we sign a contract. So it's great. But as Dave mentioned, it's not fast. So all that being said, wasn't trying to get into a long story here. Having to answer all of these little questions and hand them over can be a pain in the ass. But if we deliver better for our clients and we quote better internally and our production team's happy, I think it's a win across the board. It's just some habits and some conditions that need to be created, personally.
Let's not even forget the what is the total value of a client. I mean, it might be a
lifetime
5K
value.
project. What's that?
Lifetime value.
Yeah, lifetime value. It might be a 5K project, but then you're going to get, updates, support, hosting, all those little things. It makes it worthwhile over the long haul.
Yeah.
So I definitely like
times where we've done a website for like nothing, right? $5,000, $7,000, $10,000, and they're like $10,000, $12,000 a month marketing retainers. Like they don't they don't care about the value of the website. They've been conditioned based on a family member, a friend, a former employee. They've seen commercials for Wix and some of these others. So they understand that. But you're like, all right, you're going to spend 10. We're going to bring in, 100 every month. They're on board for that.
Right. And you've seen calculators. We've tried to build one or, some kind of online tool that says, give me a quick quote. And, today's websites are so dynamic. You've got, is it e-commerce? Is it not e-commerce? Do you have parallax effects? Do you have FAQs? Are we going to have a blog? Are you going to have a product catalog? I mean, very few websites are purely just a brochure these days, and the brochure site should be the one that's easy to quote. But then what happens when you get into those websites that are like, yeah, it's just our marketing website, but oh yeah, we have this list of territories that we service. That's as one of our team members said, that's data architecture right there. And you have to understand, well, how are they going to manage that? Or are we just slapping that as content? I mean, so there's those questions add to the quote. And the challenge here really is that, who can ask those questions? Who can get that data? Because it's necessary in order to provide an accurate quote. And we don't want to turn these projects into losses, right? Because that's an easy way to get into a loss.
Yeah, and I think to our group, once we have this questionnaire that we're putting together finished, we'll publish it. I don't think it's going to be insane to anybody, but yeah, as we go through it, they're all basic questions. There used to be this one template I remember where you would like build the sitemap. This was in 08 or 09, and everybody seemed to have this a questionnaire template for building websites. Now, if you look at that, it's super dated. I can't even think of some of the things that are on there, but it literally would not translate now. But at the end of the day, you get the fundamentals, right? What do you want to accomplish? Okay, this is what we want to accomplish. That means your site is e-commerce. Are you going to be doing content marketing? You're going to be doing blogging. Where is the imagery coming from? Is it going to be original? Is it going to be stock? Yeah, content, which I hate when the client writes the content. It's just because one, we're going to have to wait forever to get it, right? And two, it's usually going to come over like it's written by a fifth grade English teacher, and then now it's like, okay, well, we have something that doesn't speak to fucking anybody, and it's just going to make a terrible website, or it's just got way too much content, so it doesn't make sense from a design perspective. Anyway, so to every agency out there, just bulldoze and try to just figure out a way to write the content yourselves. It will save a lot of time.
And even the layer of building websites now, it's not just, hey, I want to use WordPress, right? WordPress is just the platform. Now it's okay. Now that it's WordPress, do you want a builder? Are we using a paid template? Or what kind of page builder are we using? How do you going to manage your content? Like, there's a lot of layers on top of just the base level nowadays that adds the complexity. And if you want it done right, you have to go through that proper process. I mean, and the difference between a done right website and your Upwork WordPress developer is a mile wide. And
it's concierge too, right? So let's say that you can have somebody deliver a $2,000 website, or even I run into kids like, oh, so and so will do it for $500. I'm like, great, you don't understand what you need. You're not going to be a good fit, right? But when somebody delivers that, it's not going to be concierge. You're not going to have somebody that holds your hand through this entire process, that's literally watching out for everything. It's like building roads. We can build you a bridge that goes from one bay over the ocean to another, right? Or you can have somebody that's going to pave your driveway in gravel. Like, what do you want, right? So it's understanding that there's a value there to having a professional that's going to make sure that cars aren't falling into the ocean, that you're going to build, something that is incredible. And also the bespoke side of things, we can get really inexpensive when we go the themes, because there's some great, beautiful themes out there. But if speed's an issue, you're going to get bloat, and you're going to have a slow website because it's going to have all of these other things that you don't need. Or what about integrations? You want it to speak to all of your other platforms that may not have, plugins for them. So, all right, those are things that all need to be thought through. And that's the difference as you go through, the person that's on, Fiverr, Craigslist, or whatnot, all the way up to essentially some of the things that we deliver.
Correct. I mean, the difference between the Upwork and the us is that at the end of the day, in 9 months, when they're upgrading their plugins for security patches and everything breaks, ours doesn't. So I mean, again, we want to be able to deliver that level of quality at the 5K project price and still make it profitable and make it efficient. So in order to do that, we just have to, try to streamline that as much as possible.
It's getting into a package model. It's a box, right? And it's just, this is what you can get for that. And then of course there's the add-ons, which I'm not one of those people that advocates for productizing service because that just seems
you need to have flexibility. I mean,
agreed.
You got in a box with flexibility. So, got our first user comment of the day. Just a little praise.
Boom. Thank you so much, Daphne. It's very kind. All right.
It's decent information. Not bad.
Yeah. So, but as I said, we can kind of put a pin in this part. Once we have that document completed, we will go ahead and publish that information. And we would love feedback on it. If you can add anything to it, or feel free to email me a questionnaire that you think is fantastic. I'd love to share with our audience and give you a mention.
And I think the key to this, though, to really make it a success is that we're not trying to create a process that answers every question. We're just trying to get to the 80% as fast as possible. And then anything that falls outside of that, boom, we need a tech review. I'm not trying to replace the tech review. I'm trying to say, are there a subset of projects that we don't need to do a tech review? And if so, how do we identify those as quick as possible? I mean, that's the goal. So, I mean, if we publish this document and we get a bunch of feedback that says, you're not asking this, you're not doing that, that's for the tech review. We're not trying to answer all questions. We're just trying to quickly get to which box this project's going to fit into.
And also not alienating the person you're trying to get the information from, because that can be, I've seen people that there used to be this long questionnaire that we had that we would send over to clients to fill out so we can have a more informed meeting. Nobody ever filled it out. No, there was like, dude, I'm not going to fill out like, all my core values and all this. And all right, learned by experience. All right, nobody's filling this out. Let's just move this further down the process and just make it as easy for them as possible, which I say that a lot, but it's the most important thing. Make sure it's as easy as possible for people to work with you.
To be clear about what we're doing here is we're not creating a document for the client to fill out. It's for the account manager / sales to have a conversation with the client, and they're filling this out as they go along with that conversation. The client's not going to know we're filling out something. This is just a worksheet that's going to be internal. And that goes, to the tech team for that, because clients don't want a homework assignment. That's a homework assignment.
Yeah, no, they don't want it. It's got to be as easy as possible. And I mean, our process now, we ask these questions, but it's in a very fluid manner, and it's not necessarily organized on one document. It's just been created through experience.
So we got our next question from our today's favorite account manager.
Oh, all right. I like
With technology always changing, Google's expectations always changing, design always changing, amongst everything else, how do custom websites play in being agile in an always changing world?
That's a good question.
I think I might have to handle that.
Let me give it a shot.
Go for
it. Essentially, how do custom websites play? The question we're trying to answer: how do custom websites play in an agile, in an always changing world? I think if you want to be at the head of your game, you need development talent, right? So a website is not a stagnant tool. There are dynamic things that you can use. For instance, like SharpSpring, I believe HubSpot and some of these other tools have dynamic content on there. Essentially, if you visit the website once, you do some type of action, it triggers different content, to display later. All right, so let's say that you have that. That's great. But if you want to add all these other fantastic features, you're going to need developer and programmer talent, as well as designers, to continually enhance on that, because you got to look, this is a marathon, right? And all of your competitors are continually doing things at a specific pace. So whoever's going to do it at a quicker pace that better meets the needs of your customer is always going to win. And that's essentially the way to compete. It's to find yourself a development partner and a design partner, and that can be in one shop where you're continually outpacing your competition. So if you're going to think of any kick-ass company that's not your little mom and pop, that they have those resources at their disposal.
So I'll give an anecdote that just kind of recently happened. One of our clients is Jobs in Sports. It's a job board for the sports industry. Well, Google just announced and informed everyone that in their Google Jobs data set, they didn't really have a global setup for remote jobs. But now in the COVID world, we're now, people are advertising remote jobs, basically work internationally. And that's now a core piece of the Google Jobs database and attribute set for jobs. If you were using a plugin that you just slapped in there from a custom, just downloaded and installed a plugin, and you get this notice from Google and you want to take advantage of that attribute and get in the front of the industry for remote jobs, you've got to wait for that custom plugin developer to add that feature. That might not be a priority for them. You might have to sit around and wait. You can request and they'll be like, yeah, that's going to come in version 3.6. Well, when's that due? Oh, it's not on the schedule yet. So you're not taking advantage of those new features. If you have a custom website, you're instantly able to take advantage of that. Now, granted, it's going to cost more money to be at the cutting edge of that. But when you have a custom built website that's set up correctly, you don't have a limit of how quick you can pivot to the latest feature or the latest technology. If you're relying on third-party software that you didn't develop or don't understand how it works, then you're going to get into a situation where you might get stuck or you just can't take advantage of the situation.
Yeah. And I think also to add to that, when you have a fully custom website, that means you need to continually move in that direction of pushing the envelope with what is capable, right? Because we've seen people have like a framework, especially I remember Magento, where they broke it, right? So you're going to break this framework. People do it with WordPress. They break what that tool is supposed to do as a management system. And then there's a new security update that comes out. Well, when that update comes out, you can't update your site because it's so customized that you're screwed. You're literally locked. So those are things that you need to be aware of in moving in that direction. And a good partner will be able to inform you of those types of decisions.
Yeah.
Great question.
Good answers.
Touche. All right. So some of the other things that happened this week, TikTok, man, that's something that's fun. I know we're digging into with some of our clients and the advertising side of things. And then I believe it was today or last night, Trump said you have 45 days to make a deal with Microsoft or a U.S. based company. I don't think the president really cares for that matter until that happens. I think this is, if somebody is stealing data, I think, or anything, which we know China's done this, Russia's done this, North Korea's done this, then this is, to me, it's painful, but I think it's a good decision, right? Because it's like, okay, so here's a good example. And this is, some people can argue this. I think it was up until 10 or 15 years ago, you couldn't own 7 types of major media. Like you couldn't have more than 7 radio stations or like 7 television. Yeah. What that did is that prevented people from being influenced in a specific direction, right? So you couldn't control the mass media because you could just do whatever you wanted in that mass media, right? And influence it. When I hear this type of decision or somebody taking our data like this, that's instantly what I think about. Or in some respects, like, that wasn't a good law, but in a lot of respects, it was a really good law because you can't influence all the people. So people could say now that that's a big issue because decisions are being swayed one way and we have all these divisions. So long story short, I would love to see it get purchased by a U.S. company for not only protecting our information, I want to see dollars stay in this country. So those are my thoughts. What are yours?
So this just reminds me of, like, what was it, 5 years ago, the trend where you had the like face scan and it showed how you look when you're older or something.
Not even, that was like 2 years ago.
2 years ago, and that turned out to be owned by a Russian company that was using it to update their facial recognition database. I mean, and so then the government released warnings and saying, hey, stop using this app.
Yeah.
If they're literally using it, if TikTok is being used to provide intel to another nation that can use it for harm against us, then I kind of agree with it. But then again, I think I would be more inclined to say they should ban it from anyone in the government or ban it from anything in a hypersensitive position now, and leave it in the hands of private enterprise to ban it. For example, if you're working for an IBM or an Apple or Microsoft, I would make that my law that says you can't use TikTok because I don't want them, extracting information from maybe seeing a whiteboard of a new product on a background of a TikTok video, And so I would rather much see it left in the hands of the decision in the private world because, again, I'm a libertarian, so I'm always going to say don't put government involved in it. But if there's a real threat there, it needs to be taken seriously. And we know stuff like this has happened before because of that the Russian thing from 2 years ago. So
I think it's up to governments to protect its people. And I think if this is a legitimate, protection, because also let's say that they get a ton of data, and it might not be this app, it might be another one that's on our phone or something. Granted, this one is one that people really love. That's near and dear to them. Have a lot of fun with it. But I think at that point, if it's not banned, and I like the whole enterprise route, I think that's fantastic. There needs to be heavy influence to say like, hey, and examples too. But I guess here's the biggest example. Half of everything in China is owned by the government in China. The government in China is known to suppress, and I don't want to get political. This is sounding like political.
Yeah, political.
Even doing like shopping hand, right? But to me, that's just bad. That's bad business. Like that's not healthy. That's not true capitalism. It's just not something I want to be a part of. So I know this is a very divisive conversation, but I think that would be the best route if we went with the enterprise side of things.
My beyond my approach to how we solve this, my personal perspective is, why the hell do we need another one of these things? I haven't even been on TikTok yet. I don't need it. I'm not on Instagram.
It's pretty cool, dude. It's pretty cool. I don't spend a ton of time on it. I just like to see how people take a new medium and what they do with it, and then people have a great time. What's that?
What is the new medium?
It's a new platform. It's essentially our new platform, if you want to phrase it that way. It's a video where they, put music to it. It's short and succinct. I mean, I know it's like a new comedy to some extent, right? You had stand up and then you had improv, and to see what people, now granted you have ESPN on there and all these other people that are doing it, but
it just reminds me of that trend that happened for 3 months where everybody was doing the videos back and forth, and I'm thank God I never did any of those.
Well, that's what I'm saying. This is a trend, but it's cool. It's just all right, here's this new thing. It's not going to be around forever, like Vine, right? I think Vine was swallowed up by a feature update by either Twitter or Facebook. One of them, I can't remember. Maybe somebody purchased them. I can't remember the history. Or Instagram killed them. But that's essentially what it is. I think it's all right, cool. This is a new exploration. This is something growing on the web. And then there's going to be another one. And I would love to see Microsoft compete with Facebook. I think that would be an interesting battle. I mean, they already are with LinkedIn. So I think it's just kind of leveling things up to some respect.
LinkedIn is about worthless as can be these days. So, I mean, that's on the outs. But,
you think it's on the outs?
Yeah, in terms of value of social network. I mean, they're trying. Before we move on. All right. So this week, I believe it was Monday, right? The big tech giants were on Capitol Hill discussing their monopoly.
Friday, if I'm not mistaken.
It was last week. So, Mark Zuckerberg was grilled on, does he use his threat to replicate the business model as a negotiating tactic before acquiring companies? And he's like, well, we're trying to make the features that everybody wants. And he basically made it clear that they are going to develop whatever feature gets trendy out there in one of their platforms, or they'll buy you.
Yeah. Huh? That's right. Good business.
Right. So I think I just saw a notice that Instagram is basically coming out with the TikTok-like feature. I mean, it was that quick.
Yeah.
And so that'll probably kill TikTok long before we have to worry about
Snapchat wasn't killed.
Wasn't?
No. Well, Snapchat's still a thing.
Yeah, but it's owned by Facebook now.
No, it's not.
You sure?
No, I'm positive.
I never use Snapchat either. I don't know anything about that. I don't.
The big 4-0.
I don't know why they need all these different platforms to chat and connect with people. I'm in an anti-connect mode. I'm trying to reduce connections.
Super overwhelming. I barely use a lot. I'm not the best marketer in that respect because I don't use a whole ton of these tools. But I always appreciate when they come out because it's usually some sliver, some genre, subculture. Sometimes, like for instance, Reddit or whatever. Reddit to me, when I go onto Reddit, I'm like, oh, this is literally the worst of humanity on the internet. Right. Yeah, it's just like I'll go on feed, I'm like, holy shit! This is the most negative thing I could literally have done to myself today.
So
but 1 second, let me just make a point. So, but you have all these others that are popping out, and it's usually the most positive things that pop out on these new networks, right? It's usually really happy things, and they move on. And then, of course, in the corner, you have Reddit. But before we finish that point, I think LinkedIn is going to continue to grow. That's the business side of things. I've seen multiple products try to compete with it. I think they have such a solid foothold. If they figure out how to get rid of all the spammers on there, it would make it a much more luxurious experience.
I haven't gotten anything valuable from LinkedIn in a long time. I mean, you can't recruit because all you do is get hit up with sales. All it is it's just a way to sell your data for people to try to sell. It's
like a bad networking meeting with
lead generation. You know how many messages I get that say, "Hey, I just want to expand my network. I see we're in the same industry."
Yeah.
I'm like, I have no clue who you are.
And the best way to filter out anybody is what used to be a LinkedIn tip, where you have like in your headline, whatever that headline says. If it has more than somebody's title.
Yeah.
Literally, I don't respond.
There's a sales pitch in the title.
Yeah, I mean, you're literally thinking I'm just going to see that, like, oh yeah, man, I want to work with this, growth magician, expert, guru, 10xer. Like, yeah, that's
10x.
what I'm looking for in my life, right? Is this guy or this gal, or I help so and so. It's like, I don't care.
So I feel I'm a unique individual, but right now I am currently trying to roll back a lot of my habits into a more local approach. So we've been talking about local. Like, I don't want to be connected with the world. I don't want to know what's going on everywhere. I want to really focus on making an impact locally in my community.
I got a great app name for that.
What's that?
Curmudgeon.
Curmudgeon, yes.
Yeah. Are you on Curmudgeon?
Off my lawn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I really want to focus on local. Like I've said many times before, and I'll go on a little rant right here. Like every time somebody buys a mattress online from one of those Silicon Valley, every time you buy a car from Vroom, every time you get a HelloFresh or a Blue Apron or food shipped from a Silicon Valley company, every time you get your,
Is Blue Apron still a thing? I thought they spent all their money on podcast ads that didn't work.
I don't know. Every time you get your dog food shipped from Chewy, you're taking all your money and you're sending it to Silicon Valley, and it's being shipped right outside of your community, and your community is not benefiting at all. So, I mean, I'm on this kick, same with my social profile and the things I care about, and I'm, we've canceled our Chewy.
Bot that, you put in what it is that you're looking for, and it crawls, I've
already thought about that idea.
What's that?
Just like honey, like local honey, like
local honey. Yeah,
the product honey, but for local.
Exactly.
I've already thought about putting that together because I think that would be gangbusters. There is a lot of people that are like understanding the economics of what we're doing by centralizing all of our purchasing habits in Silicon Valley.
Yeah. You could have a sustainable feature too, man. You could have like the carbon, savings and whatnot, because that stuff's got to come from somewhere. The distribution center that they built, like, oh, we're trying to help local jobs. Yeah, you decimated a swampland that killed turtles and bunnies and birds. So I'm just trying to help you sell it. Just trying to help you sell Lunny. That's all I'm doing.
I think it would be cool to see, like, yeah, you probably did pay more overall. But then you'll have that like gap analysis that says you probably spent $20 more per week. And then you just say, this is how much you put into the community.
How many jobs did you save, right? You got like people.
Think of the metrics you can pull off of that.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. I think there's a big need for that.
I agree. Demand. Yeah, especially if you can find it locally or whatever. There's companies that, that could also ship it if you needed to get to your house, which creates another, business.
Even to the point where, our closest pet store is Pet Supply Plus or something like that.
Pet stores are gross.
Pet supermarket.
That ones are like Petco and Pet Supermarket. Like those are fine, but you go into those smaller ones and just like it's sad. Lots of animals aren't being taken care of and dying. Oof.
So I used to collect exotic fish, and you had to go to those hole in the wall.
Freshwater or saltwater?
Both. I've had tanks for both. But you had to go to those like hole in the wall pet stores if you wanted to get like the dragon fish or the really cool fish. Because you go to Walmart and you're getting, the same old, and that's a boring ass fish tank. So either way, I contacted, I went to their website and I was like, all right, I still want the dog food delivered on a schedule, monthly, because that's convenient. And so I see that they offered that on their website, and they've got a local store right here. So I contacted the corporate office of Pet Supermarket, and I said, I want to buy dog food on a monthly recurring basis, but I want to make sure the credit goes to my local store. Can it be shipped through there? And they said, no, any order online through this will be accredited to the corporation and not your local store. So I was like, all right, fuck it. I'm going to go to the store every month and make sure that $1.50 profit from that bag of food goes to them and stays in my community.
Yeah. I think we actually talked about that on one of the other episodes. Oh, we just got a new comment.
Great idea. Local honey from my local honey.
I love the whole local approach. I would love to see an app or something that's created that makes that smarter. But here's a weird thing. I know some stores are doing it that way, but I think it has more to do with their inventory than it has to do with locality, right?
Sure.
So like I was at a J. Crew one time. I was like, are those all online orders? And then she said, yeah. She's literally like packaging them all up, at the same time. So I didn't ask where the hell they were going. But I think that's what it has to do with it. It's essentially their inventory control.
I'm going to give everyone the best little marketing nugget of 2020. If I was a corporate brand, if I was advising a corporate brand, I would create an entire campaign around supporting local by shopping online, and those orders will get credited to the local or the closest store to keep that money in the economy, and do a whole buy local campaign on a national brand.
There's already a lot of these going on. So I want to say, I think McDonald's, there's a lot of them
are Big Mac from their corporate website.
No, I might be mixing that with ad spending and whatnot. But I know there's two things that have happened that are big in the last couple of weeks. It's definitely a more local approach to some of their campaigns, as well as just ad spending, going back up to, previous levels pre-COVID. So I'm not trying to take away from your marketing golden 2021 nugget. I think it's a great idea, and I think we're evolving in that direction anyway, just based on the whole globalization experiment that we've had for the last 25 years. We're beginning to, get into the less, how would you put it, patchouli smelling, hippie like, stay local, buy local. Like I see these stickers, I'm like, I fucking hate papyrus. Like that literally is an anti-ad for me. But I agree with, buying local. And it doesn't mean not buying corporate. People forget that. You can still buy from big business.
Yes. You know what we just did this week? We sponsored a Pop Warner football team. Because when somebody asked, I don't even know if I told you that, but we did it, and somebody asked, and I said, absolutely, because we need to be, as a business, as a corporation, we need to be responsible to our local community and make sure that we're sponsoring these things.
Are kids even allowed to play football anymore?
No, I mean, there's going to be a season eventually.
How many fans do we have going to these? Are we going to get the exposure necessary? What's going to be the cost per thousand? Did we analyze all these things before spending the money?
I don't know, but it goes back to the comment I made a couple shows ago about like our local car dealerships. They're so involved in the community of sponsoring things, especially for youth programs.
Killed car dealerships, though.
They're not even dead yet.
I know, but it is killing them. It's how sleazy and shitty they are from a business model perspective. Like they literally had a frustrating process, and that's the thing that people are disrupting.
But you just got recently, not super recently, but your Audi kind of recently. Did you feel like that was a sleazy experience? Because I think when you're buying high end, it's pretty awesome. It's a pretty awesome experience.
Yeah, I would say so.
So yeah, if you're buying
a consumer, and I mean, granted, I'm not the easiest person to, admittedly, to sell to. Like, I know everything that you're doing. I mean, and that's why it gets frustrating. I mean, I've studied this. It's my business.
Maybe because you can't sell a salesman.
Well, it's funny. I think it's like you're either super easily sold as a salesperson because there's like a guilt complex or something, or you're not. I would be in the not category, and. Yeah, I went to the dealership like 5 times. I did get a really good rate on what I wanted and made sure it was the right car. But yeah, all the games I would call them. Like, you're not going to go in there and speak to your finance manager. We're going to go in there together. or I'm not going to buy a car from you. Why are you going to, do that? That is a terrible thing to think that I don't know what's going on in that room. So anyway, I didn't call that out on this one, my previous car before that. So I think the whole car buying experience is getting better, but that's why this is happening.
But think about, I mean, that's a big ticket item, right? So a car, let's say there's $5,000 profit on that car. Well, that $5,000 is now going to Silicon Valley. It's no longer going to sponsor your local kids' little league team or, all the initiatives that happen locally. So
the local strip club.
I think when people are starting to realize like what they're doing, they're cannibalizing their own local community by leveraging all of these online things. I think what we're going to end up.
So you have a lot of people that are moving into a lot of areas, right? Especially here in Florida. And everything is that whole, like, we can just get it from Amazon, right? We're moving from one area. We're going to build this brand new house in this other area. We're going to have all of these things just shipped to us. There is no community formation. It's just thinking of that whole, like, oh, well, I guess you would think it's kind of a very selfish outlook to life rather than having the very mindful approach of saying there are other people in this with me. Man, we're getting way off subject. I love this.
But I mean, it kind of speaks to I was just thinking, how do we tie this back? But it kind of speaks to the clients that I love working with. I love working with clients that do things, build things, make things, like not just not just a web app.
Yeah, they just don't want dollars. Like, those are my favorite. Right. They get dollars, but they really, give a damn about something. And whether it's building, because that's something that you do with your hands, or you have something very tangible that you can see. Not the whole like, just people that give a shit, I think, is the best way.
Yeah,
I agree. Good. All right. Good. What do we call that? Was that a volley? Was that a rant? Was that a line of conversation?
I think we were just TikToking, right?
TikTok.
That's how much I don't know what it is.
His version of TikTok.
Yeah.
Let's go on the front porch and TikTok. All right. The something else that I've run into this week, I don't know you too much, is time management, right? It's something I've talked about a lot. Calendaring, moving things over. I know we're coaching employees on this. So I think I don't even know where I want to go with this. I think it's just some pain that I'm having, feeling that a bit overwhelmed. And it's something that I'm not going to catch up on the weekend. My biggest change, I don't know if we mentioned this before, is blocking off Mondays where it's like no meetings, no phone calls. I just work on the things that I need to work on. So you know what? That's why I'm talking about it. Because on Monday, there are absolutely no meetings or no phone calls that I'm going to take. It is simply just my catch-up day.
So speaking of time management, I just want to let our audience know we've got roughly 15 minutes. Get your questions in if you want to get them in. That's time management. I think time management is incredibly important, and like I kind of get on your case every once in a while. If you're constantly just scheduling the things you need to do, I just feel like sometimes you just got to knock it out. Like, don't let a task hang around. If it's something that you can just attack, just do it.
My rule is if it takes less than 2 minutes, I do it now. Otherwise, I schedule it.
Yeah. I mean, because a lot of people just stack up tasks, and then they look at their task list or their things that they got to get done, and they're overwhelmed, and then it's paralysis, and they can't operate, and then they're stressing out, and people are complaining to them, and then it's just a bad situation. So
and it's for a good reason. We have a ton of business coming in. I didn't mean to cut you off. You're all about what? You did.
I like hearing about all this business we got. Tell me more.
No, we have a ton of business coming in. It's just all right, and that's the thing. There was a book that was written by some guy named Chip something, that he's like one of the most accomplished like professors of all time. He was like the youngest tenured at he was either like Stanford, MIT, or some school I didn't go to. That's but he's written more like papers than anybody else, been more published, got all these great things. And he's not on social media at all. He's done like a TED Talk, and he wrote this book. And his thing is that you turn off your phone, you don't check your email all day, and you don't do all these things. And I'm like, man, fuck you. Like, dude, you don't work in the business world, Like, right. If there's somebody calling or there's production that needs something from you, like, you are the epitome of academia. Like, this is not... a conversation for people that are in the business world. It's like, okay, and maybe, and I read the book, and it's really good thoughts and all that. But as I ended, I was like, all right, well, two things. You could have just summed that up in like, a couple paragraphs. You didn't have to write 400 pages on it. But literally, that doesn't exist. If there is a sales call that's coming in, like, we need to take that and capitalize on that immediately. And that's sales, right? Okay, cool. But even on the production side, everybody has to continue talking to each other to move this project along. So time management for me is essentially blocking off the best that I can, but remember that the 20 to 30% of spontaneity is a real thing, and I just need to leave the flexibility for that. Otherwise, I won't feel like I'm capitalizing.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to be said that how you approach the tasks that you've got. A lot of people think that they need to attack the hardest thing first, and they'll sit there and stack up task upon task upon task while you're working on this big thing. And then by the time you get this big thing done, you can't celebrate because you're looking at 45 other things you've got to do. So I always approach it the other way. Let me clear my plate. So the only thing I have to work on is the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that simple approach, plus you build momentum. You're like, boom, knocking this off. Boom, knocking this off.
And you just keep feedback loops. Yeah, it feels good. Yeah.
Right. And you're knocking shit out. You're clearing your plate. Your task list is getting smaller and smaller. And then you get to that big task and you're like, all right, let's get it.
Yep.
So,
and I think the issue is when you can't get to that big task, you keep knocking off all these little ones. And then every time you get close to it, you're like, oh, it's like elusive. Oh, it's elusive. So I try to, all my big thinking stuff, I try to do early in the morning.
Smart.
Just to knock that stuff out. But I think it's smart. And I know it's a great tip that you've been given for a while is, knock all the small things out first and then get to the big one. Because at least you're getting something done.
Right. Also, another tip that I like to teach a lot is like make sure people are waiting on you. So if you know you need something from them, let them know, and then you go back working on something else. So they're working while you're working on something else. Because a lot of people would like to work on something, they're on something, and then they're done, and they're like, okay, I can't do anything until you get me this. So now no progress is being made on a project while they're working on doing something, and then you go work on. So they're like, you can do things in parallel if you just think ahead of, if you know you're going to need something, get people working on that.
Although I do agree with that. I have noticed when people get decision fatigue or just worn out, they will put in their questions, where they're like, question me on the dumbest things. It's just like, no, you're literally just, why are you asking that question? You're just now passing it back over to me. You're just pushing it forward. That is the most irritating thing. And I've typically got that from designers in the past where it was just like, dude, like just create something, move it forward. Like all these questions you're giving are things that are either discussed in the brief or you already know. And then you dig into it and you're like, oh, well, they're just tired. Like, that's fine. Let's just push this out and let's have a conversation about it.
Sure.
All right. So we only got a couple minutes left. Dave, I'm going to give this to you. I know most of these were brought up by me. I want to be kind enough to my friend and co-host. So please, the floor is yours.
Well, I already kind of went on my rant about local. You kind of took that from me, but
fair enough.
Let's see. I guess I could just talk about how important process.
Well, I'll tee one up. How about getting something else? We will, not that we don't have people that are working well together, but we always want to get people, continually working better together, right?
Sure.
So we've had the, come to Jesus meetings, that's something. So what would you recommend as, let's say that we have two people you want to work better together as, being the operations guru, 10Xer that you are, what would you recommend to make that happen between two teammates?
I mean, the biggest thing that I always advocate is you have to cut the emotionality out of the situation and be as matter of fact as possible. You want to get direct to what is needed as quickly as possible. Scrape away all the niceties and fluffs. And I mean, I've been in organizations where I got in trouble for not having a salutation that was nice and smooth, and because I was just too direct.
What was your salutation?
What
was your salutation?
It wasn't. I just was like, hey, it was just this is what I need. And he was like, whoa, why don't you add some? And I'm like, I get it. That was like an old school, organization. But today one, I wish that people could read an email without inferring attitude, right? Not everybody's, not everybody on the other side of the keyboard's like this mother, right?
Yeah.
So just be direct and accept direct and be matter of fact and just get to the point and the solution. It's all about the solution. What are we doing? All that other stuff is a waste of time and causes stress and anxiety and emotional distress. And, I'm just here to work and do great work and do serious work and work with my teammates. And there's certainly time to have fun and all that other, stuff. But, when it's about a task or there's an emergency going on, like when there's an emergency going on for a client, like it's what's going on? How do we fix it? Don't worry. I hate getting into the blame game. I don't care whose fault it is. We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about how do we fix it? So that's just point of the matter of fact. Don't bring anything else into it. And it usually works. And it gets, quicker results. Plus, if I need somebody to work hard on figuring out a complex thing and then they've got to worry about being blamed for something, that puts an extra stress on them and they're not focused. They're pissed. They're getting blamed for something that they may or may not have done. So,
which is adding emotion to it. But the one thing I look at is when I first got into email, right, in a corporate setting, I looked at the people that were frustrated the most and the people that weren't. And it seemed like the messages from the people that were frustrated the most were the people that were not looking at who's receiving the message. Meaning, and it wasn't necessarily that they were direct, they were just saying it in a way that it could be misinterpreted, right?
Sure.
So politeness is a magic tool that, saying please and thank you, make things go so much smoother. It's insane. And that's something that I was all right, that I adopted, starting out, writing copy, doing all those things, just in emails even. How can I sell this person into doing what I want them to do? And because when they receive it, I don't know what's going on in the world, but I know one thing that they can say is they can't say well, man, that's you didn't ask, anything mean, I want to help this person. And if you like someone and they're nice to you, the chances of you not wanting to let them down and delivering more for them goes a lot longer. But I know it might take an extra second. And I agree that I'll even send out the nice ones. And sometimes some people will misread what I'm saying, add meaning to it, add emotion. And that can be a total efficiency killer.
I reread every email I send that says, can this be taken any other way? And if it is, I'm just painfully detailed or specific or to the point where I think sometimes probably people read my emails and they're like, what does he think? I'm an idiot? You laugh as if you might have thought that once.
No, not at all. I just thinking of an email I sent earlier today where I had two things. It was early in the morning. It was one of the first ones I sent out to one of our teammates. And I said, hey, schedule a call with them. I want to close them over the phone. And they said, by close them, do we mean get a signed signature over the phone? This is going to be a visual discussion. I was like, no, what I mean. And I mean, fair enough. It wasn't clear enough. I corrected. I said, forgive me. It's early morning. What I mean by that is close them as we're always closing the sale. And two, let's do this over a Zoom, because Zoom and phone are so synonymous with me now. It was just all right, well, fair enough.
Right.
Yeah,
there's got to be a law of something out there that if it's going to be misinterpreted, it will be misinterpreted by a millennial.
Touche. All right, I think that's a high note to leave on, trashing millennials,
yes.
Which I'm on the cusp of real quick. Yeah, so 82. 82 is the
are a millennial.
82.
No, I heard
the
it was
generation. Is I think, as they said, is between it's either 77 and 78 in people born in 1982, up to 83.
I was born in 1979, and I'm considered Generation X.
Yeah, no, yeah.
So
and I'm at the cusp of the millennial.
And even millennials can still have a different mentality. It really is not literally stuck to the year you're born. It's just how you approach life.
Well, no, and I also think it's the parenting. If your parents gave you, the 13 plates trophy, and they told you that they never, that the whole world is just full of love and fluff, 100%. And they never said that you suck, or not that you suck, but I mean, they never really gave you hard news in a direct way or fashion. the world looks at you in a different way. There's a chance of that. Is all I'm going to say. But if you got second place and your parents were like, "Well, you weren't number one, but good try harder. There's work ethic and all those other things," and just those are that's what the rest of the world is thinking. When they don't think like a millennial.
That's how the rest of the world works. I mean, seriously, nobody's happy to be the second world power.
Yeah, the first loser. Yeah,
right.
Number 2.
So I guess my closing thought is I just want to reiterate: if you're looking for a peer group, Digital Mastermind Group is the best agency group there is. Definitely have a conversation with Jon, and if you're an agency owner, join us.
Thanks, Dave. Tips, tricks, tools, mentorship. It's a peer group, bi-weekly calls. We got a yearly meeting. That's fantastic. 2021 is going to be off the rails. If you want to grow your agency, then the Digital Mastermind is for you. So go ahead and shoot me an email, john@digitalmastermind.com. Check out the website, digitalmastermind.com. And I look forward to talking with you whenever it is that you're going to reach out. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye now.